Hello, everyone, and welcome to Startup Magazine and Mauser Electronics taking your business virtual webinar. My name is Anna Flockett. I'm the editor of Startups Magazine, and we just thought with the current global situation, we thought webinars were a nice way to bring everyone together as a bit of a community because everyone can't meet up and socialize together. And in a world where everyone is isolated, having to make big changes with their businesses, their life, their routines, everything, why not shed some light in some ways that can help you, give a little bit of guidance, and again, just come together as a little safe space. So I'd first of all like to say thank you to Mauser Electronics for sponsoring the webinar. Mauser is a worldwide leading authorized distributor of semiconductors and electronic components for over 800 industry leading manufacturers. Mauser is the go-to source for engineers who need the widest product selection, competitive pricing with no minimum orders, fast delivery and excellent service. So make sure you check them out, and there'll be a lot more details regarding contacting them and further information in our post-event mailer. So look out for that one tomorrow. Within the next hour, we've got some amazing guests with some really insightful advice and information when it comes to adjusting to all this virtual work life and just coping right now, really. So we'll start with one of our amazing partners, Tania from Karma, who will kick things off with a discussion around mental health amongst startups. Then we'll pass the baton to Paul from Buzzbar, who's going to be looking at case studies of startups and how they've adapted to current obstacles in their way. And did you know that if you quote Startups Magazine, you can have a 45-minute free session with Buzzbar? It's definitely something to check out right now. And finally, then to conclude, we'll have a Q&A with the co-founder of the health tech startup Butterfly Network, Nevada Sanchez, on the work that they're currently doing to help within the COVID-19 crisis. So very exciting hour ahead. Just a few bits. We've got a Q&A function at the bottom. So if you have any questions at any time, I'm sure there will be times to ask questions, and I can unmute you all. But if you've got a question at any time, if you type it in the Q&A bit, then we'll get to answer them at a point where it's easy to answer. And so then without further ado, I will pass over to Tania.
Thank you so much for the lovely welcome, Anna, and it's lovely to be here. So thank you for inviting me. Hello and welcome to today's webinar. So I'm just going to share my screen to get that started. Hello and welcome. So today I'm going to be talking to you about making working from home work for you. So as Anna mentioned before, this has a particular focus on looking at mental health and well-being and how you can support yourself as you're taking your business virtual and working from home. So just a brief background, my name is Tania Diggory. I'm the founder and director of Karma, which is a training organisation set up to support entrepreneurs, freelancers and business teams to nurture good mental health and well-being. So we do this through workplace training courses, which we do online and remotely as well. And we also have a range of digital products, including our new Working From Home guide. So you're welcome to get in touch to find out any more information around how we can support you. And I'll leave some information at the end of the webinar today too. So without further ado, we're going to get started. So the purpose of this presentation today is really to provide you with actionable steps that you can take away straight away after the webinar to help you nurture your working from home experience in a healthy, happy and productive way. So what we'll be covering today in this webinar is how you can nurture an effective working from home mindset, because everything really does start with mindset. So we'll be going into that in more detail. We'll talk about working towards your ideal remote working setup and what that entails. And we'll also talk about how you can make time for your health and well-being, because essentially, if that is not in check, if you're not taking the time to really look into how you're feeling on a day-to-day basis and how you can nurture good mental health and well-being, then that can have a direct effect on the output of your work. So we'll talk about steps you can take to support yourself in that area too. So, does this resonate with you? Here's a direct quote, a case study from somebody in our community, the lovely Fiona. So the flexibility of working from home is great, but I find the boundaries between my home life and my work life become blurred. I'll often work on my laptop in the kitchen and maybe in the living room and sometimes in my bedroom. The line between my sanctuary space and workspace is hazy, and as a result, I've formed unhealthy habits. So feel free to pop a comment if this resonates with you, or if there's something specific that you're thinking has just sprung to mind, that you find it's a bit tricky to keep in check in terms of boundaries at home. We found some really interesting feedback from our community over the previous years, which led to the creation of our working from home guide, where people would say things like this, or that, I just roll out of bed in the morning and then I just get my laptop open and then I'm working straight away, or I struggle to take breaks. So there's so many things that can get in the way of providing healthy boundaries in your working from home setup, because it's all in one place. You've got your sanctuary space, but you've also got your workspace. So how do you navigate that? So a few statistics I'll share with you and things that we can bear in mind. So the Office for National Statistics reported that more than 1.54 million people were working from home in 2018. Now forward to 2019, their most recent statistics show that 8.7 million people had experienced working from home. And since the outbreak of the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic, this is now estimated of how many people are actually working from home as a result of this, as 20 million. Now that is a huge jump when you consider it, especially the fact that in the UK alone, it's estimated that the population is around 67 million. So that's a huge part. So almost, a third or so of the population are working from home at the moment, because obviously there are other work ventures where you aren't required to work from home, but a huge portion of the population are estimated to be working from home at the moment. So it's worth bearing that in mind. When it comes to our productivity whilst working from home, a report by the time management software provider Rescue Time identified that on average, individuals feel really productive around 12.5 hours in a week. So each week, only around 12.5 hours do we feel fully productive in our work. And if you think about it, there may be times in the day where you can identify that you feel a particular surge of productivity, or that you're, more on the go in the morning or maybe in the afternoon. And there are certain times in the day where you might experience a slump in productivity. Does that ring a bell to you? So, it's worth bearing that in mind, that actually more studies show that working really long hours and, starting early, finishing late doesn't actually make you more productive. It's actually what you're doing with your time and how productive you feel that's most important. Like, have you ever had the situation before where you've been working on a project for ages, you've been staring at the screen for ages, let's say, and you get to a point where you think, oh, I just can't look at the screen anymore. I need to walk away. I need to have a break. And then you stand up, you walk away, and then you come back about 15 minutes later, and then you look at the screen and you're like, oh, I've made a big error there, or oh, that needs adjusting, oh, that makes sense. And then everything just looks as if you're looking at it through fresh eyes. Does that ring a bell to you as well? So, our brains actually naturally need breaks, and we'll talk about that in more detail shortly. But also that we don't need to put pressure on ourselves to feel like we have to be working all hours to be really productive. Like, we do need intermittent breaks, and we do need to understand and identify when in the day do we feel most productive. Okay, so a simple walk around the block. So I'm going to tell you a brief story that I heard of once, and it always resonated with me. It always stayed in my mind, and I hope that it will share a positive message with you as well. So with these statistics in mind, with what I've just shared, there was a story I heard once about a couple, Rachel and Dave, and they both worked from home together. But before that, they were commuting to work. And then their jobs led to a transition where they ended up working from home. But they found that they were still carrying a lot of unhealthy habits within that they felt they needed to show that they were working a lot of the time, even though people couldn't see them. They wanted to show and prove that they were working really hard. So they fell into unhelpful habits like waking up really early, going to bed really late, working a lot of hours in the day, not taking breaks. And even though they would have, in a typical working day, spent time commuting to work, they were using that commute time, waking up really early and just working really early. And they didn't feel like it created a healthy boundary, in the sense that, there was like a lot of spaces in the house where they were working and things like that. So what they decided to do was try to mix things up a bit. So they decided to give it a bit of a trial in terms of trying something new. So they started behaving as if they were getting up to go to work each day. And this is going into the mindset aspect that we'll be talking about in this webinar. So what they did was they got up one day and they got showered, dressed, had breakfast together, they got ready for work as if they were heading out for the day to work. And so they got their bags, they put their coat on, put their shoes on, and they actually walked out the front door together down to their driveway, gave each other a hug, said goodbye, and went for a walk around a couple of blocks, and then came back to their place of work together. And so they felt that they'd actually arrived at work. And what this led to was a real surge in productivity, and it actually nurtured a more productive and positive mindset because they felt that boundary was in place. And then they'd also dedicated space in the home just for work. So not only had they started their day in a way as if they were going to work, but when they got in, they actually felt more ready to go, and they felt like they'd arrived as if they would have had they commuted to the office. So that's just a really sweet story that always stayed with me, and I thought I'd share that with you as well. So it just goes to show one little action, one decision that you make can actually totally turn around how you view your day. So with this in mind, if you look at your first task of the day as 1 hour, so especially if you find yourself in the habit of waking up and just getting straight to work, look at what else you could do just within that first hour of the day where you perhaps would be commuting, and look at what you can do. So whether it's eating nutritious foods, whether it's reading a book to nurture the mind, whether it's writing your intentions for the day, movement, so whether it's a walk, vigorous exercise, or a gentle yoga practice, or you're spending time outdoors, going for a walk, whether it's meditation, speaking to someone you love, or something else. Have a think about whatever else you like to do that helps to nurture your health and well-being. But starting your day in this way can have a profoundly positive effect because it gets you into the mindset of feeling relaxed. So your energy state plays a big part into how productive you will feel for the rest of the day when you work, as opposed to starting the day feeling perhaps a bit stressed or a bit on edge or a bit rushed. So you've allowed yourself and given yourself permission just for that 1 hour, and think about how you could spend that hour and how much of a difference it could make to your mindset and your productivity at the start of the day. So there's a lot to be said for the value of identifying your most challenging task of the day, first and foremost. So we've talked about the start of the day, the first hour that you can look into as to how you could approach that in a productive and positive way. But there's something to be said for your most challenging task. Now, the Mark Twain quote goes, "Eat a live frog first thing in the morning and nothing worse will happen to you for the rest of the day." Has anyone heard of that before? Now, we're not encouraging frog eating, okay, but we do encourage the sentiment behind this. So it's the idea that when you do tackle that one thing that you feel, oh, I know I need to do this, but it's not necessarily either whether it's my most fun task to do, or it's making me feel a bit stressed, or whatever it is. If you just buckle down and really focus on getting that done first and foremost, then when that's out the way, you'll naturally feel relief, feel quite proud of yourself perhaps. And you may find that actually other tasks in the day feel that bit easier. So there's something to be said for that. Try tackling your most challenging task first. Now, I mentioned this earlier, so we'll come back to this now, about taking regular breaks. Now, the idea of taking breaks can seem like maybe you're being not so productive, but actually when you look at the big picture of taking care of yourself in a working day, actually it's the most important thing that you can embed into your working day. So research has shown that we can only focus on one task or a series of tasks at one time for up to about 90 minutes or so until our brain starts to get tired. So whilst we might be thinking that we're being really productive in working really long hours through the day, not taking breaks, eating your lunch at your desk perhaps, because there's too much to do and not enough time in a day, right? It's very common to feel that way, especially when you're a startup or small business, or you're running a business, etc. But when you actually give yourself, say, even just 10 to 15 minutes break every hour and a half or so, research has shown that it actually helps you come back to your work with higher levels of productivity, more creativity, and more switched on focus. So you're able to get your best work done. So that's something that I'd strongly advocate for. Look at where you can create pockets of time in the day for breaks because you need it. As I said earlier as well, 12.5 hours on average a week that we're fully productive anyway. So it's not to say we won't feel productive at all the other times, but it's worth bearing that in mind. When am I feeling most productive and how can I help nurture my productivity by allowing myself regular breaks throughout the day. Now, also think about your start and finish time when you're working from home. And everything I'm talking about here is, like I say, leading to nurturing good mental health and well-being. We do need structure in our days as well as human beings. Routine is very important. So when you're at home, like I say, the boundaries can be very blurred and it can feel all over the place. So allow yourself a start and finish time to the day, again, as you would do if you were going to an office or another space of work outside of your home environment. So one way that you can do this that could be extra effective for you is to set an alarm when you have your finish time in the day. So you've got your start time in the day. We've talked about the importance of your first hour. And when your finish time is, really try and stick to it. But what you can do is set an alarm and put it in another room in the house or the flat or wherever you live. And so you have to physically get up from your desk and walk over to switch it off, right? So that will actually get you up and get you moving and might be an extra motivator for you to actually finish at that time. So, so once you've done that, think about how you can reward yourself afterwards as well. Like maybe have something to look forward to when you finish your working day that's an extra incentive as well. Now we'll just have a little chat about your workspace and making your workspace your place to work. So as I mentioned earlier and in the quote that I shared from Fiona in our community, it's very easy to pick lots of different points in your home working environment, or in your home environment, and have them be workspaces. So whether it's at your kitchen table, whether it's in your living room, etc., or if you have a desk, but then you mix it up. Now, that's not to say that it's negative all the time to do this. There may be the odd session where it's a comfort to just mix up the environment a bit, and there can be something to be said for that. But what we're talking about is, as a general point, making it a really healthy work setup. So there's a few things to bear in mind here. When we talk about natural lighting, there's science behind this as well. So having natural light in your space actually boosts a chemical in the brain called serotonin, which helps you to feel calm and positive and energized. Now, when doctors treat individuals for seasonal affective disorder, this has a direct link to low levels of serotonin in the brain. So doctors will often prescribe these individuals to have as much natural light around them as possible during the daytimes. In terms of mood boosting colors, images, photographs, products around your working space, really have a think about what you can include, things that make you smile and that lift your spirits, that give you a nice little break away from your work as well. Smiling activates neural messaging in the brain that evokes happiness and positivity. So think about what you can have around you that makes you smile. Now, music. Music has also been shown to maximize learning and improve memory. So for some people, they find that they focus more when they're listening to music, and for some people, they find it a distraction. So of course, it's all relative to you as an individual. But if you do really enjoy and embrace music when you work, for some people, it can help boost concentration levels. So have a think about what type of music helps you to feel focused and productive. So managing the temperature in the room is also very important. Now, the sort of standard health and safety regulations suggest that between 18 to 22 degrees in the room is a good guideline, maybe less, maybe more, depending on your activity. For example, if you're having a vigorous workout, you want it to be a cooler temperature in the room so you don't feel too hot. But when you're working at your desk, think about, what temperature in the room works for you. Because if you're feeling too cold, and equally if you're feeling too hot, that can be quite distracting on your work. So having indoor plants can also boost happiness levels. It also reduces stress and can improve productivity, studies have shown. Not only that, it can also improve the air quality in your room. So have a think about including a few indoor plants in your space as well. And finally, having a comfortable chair. Something like this one that I'm sitting on right now. So a healthy ergonomic chair is really important to think about, especially when you're sitting at your desk for long periods of time. But also think about things like cushions, blankets, things that are of comfort to you, and that make your working environment and experience that much more positive as well. So I'd just like to reflect a little bit on the power of conscious breathing. Now, you may have heard phrases like just breathe or breathe through it, and you might think, yeah, great, okay, well, I breathe every day, what's the big deal? But what we're talking about here is something a little different. So conscious breathing, you're making that choice and taking yourself into the moment to focus on the breath. So it helps ground you, it helps bring you into the present moment. But there are also a lot of really important physiological, mental, and emotional benefits too. So it induces tranquility and can actually improve also the structure and physiology and function of your brain, to the extent that it can actually strengthen important connections in the brain. So particularly when you're doing acts of conscious breathing, it strengthens the connection between the amygdala part of the brain, which is the emotional center, where also the stress response lives, and the prefrontal cortex, which is here. And this part of the brain is responsible for decision-making, planning, logical thinking, doing. So conscious deep breathing actually strengthens the connection between those two parts of the brain. But it also increases oxygen supply to different parts of the body. It lowers your blood pressure and releases any physical tension that you feel in your body. So there's many, many benefits to conscious breathing. Now, the reason I bring this up in this context as well is you may find that there are circumstances you're facing where you feel quite anxious or you feel quite stressed, and you may want to tap into this as an exercise to do, because it helps to improve your respiratory system, calm down your nervous system, and sharpen your focus. So just think about 30 seconds or so of deep conscious breathing whenever you're feeling a bit anxious, to help calm your nerves and improve your feelings of well-being. So just to wrap up on the central point around remote working, and especially if you're a manager or managing a team, there's a quote from our recent Working From Home guide. There is a fine balance between micromanagement and abandonment when you have a remote working team. Nurture a remote working culture that regularly fosters connection by video call or in-person meetings wherever possible, because autonomy and trust are absolutely essential. So 5 easy ways that you can stay connected with your team. As managers, really ensure that your one-to-one meetings are consistent, because especially in these circumstances that we find ourselves in at the moment, but in general, when you're remote working, that human connection is so important. So if you can't meet in person, making sure that you have those video calls, or if you don't even have necessarily anything specific to catch up on, having regular times in the diary where you can catch up with your team is so important, so that they know they have that time put aside to connect, to share, or to get any other support they need. Make a note of your team's birthday dates as well, because think about little things you would be doing in your office environment, like celebrating people's birthdays, celebrating achievements, etc. So just make a note of that and make sure you either do a little something for them virtually, or you could even post something to them to let them know that you're thinking about them. Those are all little things that go a very long way and fosters that trust and rapport as well. Organize virtual tea breaks. Again, think about what you do in the kitchen, in the office environment. So why not organize little catch-ups and tea breaks? And this could help enable those breaks in the day where 10 to 15 minutes actually does a lot for your productivity. So could you organize that with your colleagues or with entrepreneurial buddies? Starting your online meetings in a memorable way. So when you have catch-ups with your team, or if you're having partnership catch-ups or meetings with other entrepreneurial friends, think about what you could start with that's, something that sets a positive tone for your meeting, a fun exercise, or just checking in with your well-being. Like, what are you doing for your well-being this week? What would you like to do more of, etc. Just something to, give you something to remember. And finally, recognizing personal and professional achievements is so important. Now, you can do this on an individual level or as a team, as an exercise. But just, as human beings, bear in mind that we all share very similar basic human needs. The need to feel understood, to feel appreciated, to feel valued, to feel listened to, like our voice is heard and it matters and it contributes to something. So making time to recognize people's personal and professional achievements is so, so important, and especially for fostering a culture of openness and ease and trust in the workplace. So to summarize, look at everything that I've shared with you today as a way to reward yourself for your hard work. Now, these are things that help enable productivity and ensure that you work in a healthy and happy way while working from home. So not only are they important from a productivity level and health and well-being, but also it gives you little ways to reward yourself, recognizing your achievements, giving yourself breaks in the day, having something to look forward to in the evening, etc. So of everything that I've talked about today, just have a think, what will your next action step be? Even if it's just one thing at the moment that you take away from this, what is that one action step? And perhaps write it down to make a note. So thank you so much for listening. I hope that you found that really engaging and insightful, and it's something that can really support and help you during this time. And there are some different ways that you can stay connected with us. As I mentioned earlier, we've just launched our Working From Home Guide, the Complete Karma Guide to remote working. And this is to help professionals like yourself learn how to work from home in a way that works for you in a healthy, happy and productive way. So please do check that out, and you can sign up to our newsletter for updates. Check out our blog for further inspiration, insights and research, and also on social media as well. This is Karma and Tania Diggory. So thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much, Tania. That was really great, especially right now in this current climate. So I'll be taking some of them on board myself. Thank you. We did have a couple of questions, but I'm just really conscious of time, so I'm going to move on to Paul, and then if there's time at the end, then we'll come back to everyone's questions.
Great, thank you.
So thank you. Paul, without further ado, the stage is all yours.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much, Tania. That was amazing, and I love your branding colours. They are beautiful. They really are.
Thank you.
So, hello everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate your time and attention. I think it's important at the moment that the events industry starts to really get back on its feet doing virtual stuff and that sort of thing. So we're trying to do more of these and that sort of stuff. So for those of you who don't know, Buzzbar is the world's first media and marketing production service. And it's as simple as you can walk in off the street, usually when we're not in lockdown, sit down with a marketing specialist and then literally talk about anything from your strategy, social media. You might want graphics and videos and photography or something like that. We have a team of full-time people that are ridiculously talented and open to doing loads of things, whether it's, you know, something brand new on Snapchat, all the way through to you've got to set you up with a newsletter, fix your website or set up a website. 70% of people in the UK who have small businesses don't have a website, which is still mind-blowing to me, and that sort of stuff. Anyway, I am president of the US over there, which is still a fictitious company because I'm meant to be recruiting 150 people right now, but instead I'm in Mile End. So that's my fantastic life at the moment, where I've removed all sharp objects from around me. So yeah, so that's me at the moment in a nutshell. That's Buzzbar. Startup Magazine actually have an offer on at the moment, which they're a partner of ours. So what we do is we work with them on an ongoing basis with events and stuff, usually physically. And at the moment you can basically get 45 minutes instead of 30. So I'll tell you about that in a second. But what we're going to do for the rest of this time is 20-ish minutes thrill ride into the world of cereal for lunch, sweatpants, and more than a little advice for marketing during the oh so slightly world-changing event that we're all going through, which is called the pandemic and that sort of thing. So tonight we're probably going to hear about that will be another 3-week period of lockdown. This is a period where because we didn't quite know where we would be and that sort of thing, but we are thinking that this will be the last major period where we'll all be locked down. It all depends on if we're good people and we stay in. But essentially what we're thinking of, this is now the period of where everyone should be galvanizing and really preparing to sort of come out and that sort of stuff. So let's talk a bit about that. First and foremost, this is the link. I put it in the chat beforehand and I think it's going out on the email tomorrow, but essentially everyone gets 45 minutes for free with a marketing specialist. Literally book in anytime you want and you can get it sorted on behalf of Startups Magazine. So come in, if you've got a strategy already, great. If you need us to create one, we're happy to do that. Let us know what you need. We're here to help. So let's roll. There are gifts in here. I apologize in advance. I'm obsessed with them. Sorry. Right. Okie doke. So what's going on? First of all, world's frightened. Lots of people are ill and dying. Sorry to say, but they're not going to be customers. Everything closed down, but people are still working. People are still planning. That's our real sort of focus at the moment. And the idea is essentially really pushing that last two messages for startups, because I think it's incredibly important to keep these people going, keep them fueled and that sort of stuff. People are planning. And the idea is essentially that you want to really prep now. I'm going to take you through a few examples of what startups that we know and we've helped have been doing recently, but there's lots out there of people pivoting, doing different things, some going into hibernation to reevaluate and then come back out. But essentially what we're trying to do is figure out what is the value, what is the ads and the asks and that sort of stuff that people are going through, and do we have that current understanding of what the place in the world should be? Some people at the moment, you know what, can't be business as usual. It's just not relevant for them to be there right now, but we still want to keep them going. And that's the whole point. So it's keep on planning, keep on focusing, right? So the first up that I want to talk to you about is GLOBECHAIN. So if you haven't heard about them, they're a waste marketplace. Essentially, they work with people like Nando's to the NHS and that sort of thing. And they pick up old tables that aren't knackered, they're still pretty good nick and that sort of stuff, but they're just not what they're using at the moment, and they redistribute that, some in the UK, a lot overseas and that sort of stuff. So essentially they have this amazing little sort of eBay eBay/Gumtree, but for goods. So it can be shelving, it can be tables and that sort of thing. So a new restaurant could go on there and be like, I'd like those tables, please. That'd be great. So they have an amazing business, B Corp, doing really smart stuff, getting lots of investment beforehand. Obviously, that world has sort of dried up with everything not being allowed to travel around and that sort of stuff. So what they decided to do was, instead of that, they wanted to keep going. They wanted to help people. So they started to distribute PPE equipment and that sort of stuff. Super quick, changed that model, flipped it on its head, really focused and got their supply chain working for them and that sort of stuff. And so the next steps that they've been telling us that we're working on is basically preparation to come back out of that, because then it's not a pivot, it's just a sort of, we're here to help right now, keep things going, keep everyone employed and that sort of stuff, and really confirm the place in the world and when they can sort of start doing that. PPE equipment is so super important at the moment. It's going to be for the next at least month and a half, probably even more than that. But essentially, they're really helping fix those chains. Great firm, May and the team, super smart. Had them on the TBD stage, talking about future of female foundership and that sort of stuff. One of the great startups that are really sort of changing the world. They work with people from IKEA all the way through. So check them out if you haven't. They're doing great things. If you can help them, get in touch with May. I think it's may@globechange.com. So second company is HUGG, 3 Gs. They used to be, still are, a micro gifting service, which essentially means you can send people a cup of coffee via a text message, and that's the thing. Not so great when all the coffee shops are shut, and also while people may need it, most people are probably craving alcohol right now rather than caffeine. So the issue at the moment for them is keeping the lights on and really making the best use of what they can do. They have that sort of gifting mentality, those sort of customers and consumers out there that understand that. So they flipped it on its head and they said, hey, why don't we just gift each other food vouchers and that sort of stuff? So they've really sort of moved with times and the sort of current climate to focus on a new type of economy that's sort of set up. Never in their wildest dreams would they have sold food vouchers. We were talking about it on the phone the other day. But essentially, it was just something that they came up with literally to say, like, I think we can keep this going. This is what we should do. People are really in need. We can really flip this into moving it and that sort of stuff. And I said, when I said, what are you doing next? What are you planning on? And that sort of thing. And first thing they said was database clean. It's all about getting that data up to date, keeping it clean, making sure that we are talking to our customers, advising them what they're doing, asking them for help, which is a great one. I don't see enough of that in emails that I keep getting told about COVID, is like what people can do to help and that sort of stuff. If you want to check out more about that, you can go to hugg.me/supermarket vouchers. That's a great way of finding out everything about that, but also just seeing how people communicate as well. They are absolutely great at their tone of voice. So any startups out there that really want to sort of get a sense of how to speak to customers a bit more humanly in this sort of time, they're a great example of that. Third and foremost was one that I'm pretty proud of, because we turned it around in about 2 hours for GEANNIE and that sort of thing. So a woman who used to run lots of physical yoga classes and that sort of stuff has now set up herself a WhatsApp subscription club. Essentially, she's now making more money through that WhatsApp subscription club than she was making offline and that sort of stuff. Her next steps is to create a website and productize what she's doing a bit more. So before she was doing all the clubs and the gyms, which obviously that's dried up. So then she went online and she basically has a YouTube WhatsApp product now with a regular subscription income. And basically it's a nice way that she sort of pivoted on what she was doing. She's not the first to do it, but she's the first to do it via a newsletter subscription portal, which was quite nice. And we got her set up in 2 hours. And like you say, she's now making more money than when she made offline. So that's always a good one. Her next steps, really figuring out what that product looks like. She's going to start pushing into that sort of world a bit more. I think a lot of these individuals and entrepreneurs who sort of help people with it, their main currency is time or expertise, are starting to figure out there is a subscription economy. It's still booming. People have got loads to sort of work on. People have got lots to sort of do. If you want to find out more about GEANNIE, you can go to her old website. We're making her new one at the moment, realrevolutionhealing.co.uk, which is absolutely fantastic on WhatsApp. Hilarious. So those were the three I wanted to sort of focus on, and then I wanted to use the rest of the time, if it's possible, just to go through some sort of things that we're thinking from a more strategic point of view for startups that we're sort of seeing and recommending to people at the moment. So all of those people knew that they had value, right? They knew what they could add and that sort of thing. They're also really clear it's not permanent. They're not pivoting. It's not shift. That's really important from an investor perspective to make not everybody shit their pants. But then the other point is really making them focus on, like, we've got a plan. This is a moment in time. We are not changing everything. We still believe in fundamentally in the view and that sort of thing. Really important to get people to dig into that and understand it. And then I think the final point that they all sort of really did was they sold it correctly. They didn't come off as heroes videos or anything like that. They just got stuck in, got their hands dirty and just made it work. And I think that's partly tone of voice, that's part of what they did, but also it's the way that they have cultivated their methods of communication to their people as well. So those were just some sort of things that we've been. So the lessons that we're sort of seeing at the moment is like, don't waste your time learning Italian. No one's going to Italy for a long while and that sort of thing. Great that people live in Italy. I'm sure you can learn it once in a while. Use this time to plan, right? Don't, you know, it's great to do a lot of the, you know, self-expression and that sort of stuff. And Tania spoke about some great ways of like keeping focus at work. Now is not the time to take your eye off the ball. You will lose harder than if you did nothing, and any other time than if you do nothing now. It is now the time to lean in and work smarter. And I think Tania would agree with, like, you know, keeping those boundaries of work times and that sort of stuff. But the idea is to plan for what you're going to do, not just when it comes out. Don't wait. Do not wait. Start planning now. So to that end, let's talk about it. Stay active. Tania would agree on that. It's not stopping time, and it's about time to get up, down, and all that sort of thing. Move it around and keep it going. Finally, I think moving regularly is really key for me at the moment. I'm certainly noticing a tire form around me at the moment. So I have been getting up and down regularly and just setting a clock just to get up and down and make some green tea and that sort of stuff. It's highly important to keep the blood pumping at the moment, because we are so sedentary. It's ridiculous. All of my team are just, you know, they're busy with clients and that sort of stuff, but you can just tell they're whacked looking at their screen all the time and that sort of thing. So getting up is moving, and it also will just help you come up with better ideas as well. So some more holistic, detailed information. So figuring out what your people need is the most important thing you can do at the moment. But figuring that out really means a sort of understanding of what people are wanting and what they're expecting from you. But you've got to also really understand what they're going through and what, more importantly, they don't want and they don't need. And I think I'm seeing some of this come through with the terrible marketing that you're seeing for like supermarkets and that sort of thing. It's sort of, it's cutesy, but it's like, you know, really overselling and that sort of stuff. And we're starting to see it come through on Instagram ads and that sort of thing. It's all about the tone of voice, and it's figuring out, you know, it's okay to sell, but, you know, you've got to reel it in. Sometimes you're not needed right now and that sort of stuff. So picking your battles is always a good one. That's the thing. I think it's good to be human, right? Selling is okay. It's just really different at the moment. I think most people are missing this. They should try seeding instead, going to look for those opportunities where they can be, rather than mass broadcasting. It's just not working at the moment for a lot of people. They're seeing bad ROI on ad investment, and they're seeing creative take too much time to sort of create. That's why I think a lot of people are sort of coming into Buzzbar. Certainly at the moment, we're seeing a lot of graphics work been done, but more than ever, we've had people doing tone of voice. People just aren't quite ready to sell yet and that sort of thing. So work on that tone of voice document. If you need a hand, let us know. When I look at these two gifts and that sort of stuff, the one thing I sort of noticed is that both are having fun, right? It's just really different expectations and really different norms and behaviors that are going on. And I think that's really core for a lot of people to sort of read the room at the moment. Lots of people are missing the mark on this one, and it's really going to impact not just now who loves you, but who loves you after the fact, because people are remembering what people see and say and do at the moment. That do one's really important, especially for startups. You know, we don't mind if you go dark for a while, you can always come back, but if you're trying to do something badly at the moment, oof, it's bad business. So get the advice that you want to do that now. Finally, I think the other one with seeding is don't be a jerk, really. You're always going to be on their turf. You don't own their platforms and that sort of stuff. They're certainly not expecting you. That doesn't mean you aren't welcome or that you can't sell things. It just means you have to go about it in a different sort of way. So I think the key thing, I've mentioned it a couple of times, tone is everything at the moment. You've got to own the fact you're promoting something. You've got a business, you've got employees, you want to keep the lights on and that sort of stuff. That doesn't mean you sell through fear or people's sadness and that sort of stuff. You've just got to be honest about the facts and what you're trying to achieve, I think, and that's a good way of selling, generally, but especially now. So I think the other thing is don't do all of it in a day. Lots of people lose their minds, wake up at 9 o'clock and essentially just like go, I'm going to spam the world. Right, there's WhatsApp, done, 15 minutes. There's LinkedIn, done, another 15 minutes. And that's the thing. And you look at it and you go like, we've just dropped one stone in one pond of a massive ocean and that sort of stuff. And the idea is essentially do little and often, search for the things. Twitter is a great opportunity. People are literally crying out for help on there, saying like, I need this done, I need that done, can anyone help? You can go on there and find stuff to do, find people to help and that sort of thing. The idea is be a good person, and copy and pasting is far too easy. So don't be that spammer and that sort of thing. Try and make it bespoke every time, find those opportunities. So I think the other key thing is you don't have to just wait for people to say something. You can go to people, but you've got to think strategically. So for example, Meetup. oh yeah, that's a crazy thing. What are you talking about, Paul? There's no meetups at the moment. No one can physically touch each other. But actually, you've only got to talk to one person there to get to a lot of people. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to maybe find the right meetup groups and go and talk to the moderator of those and figure out, oh, can we have a strategic conversation about when we are up and running, what we can do together and that sort of thing. Now's the time to set those things up and really get those things going, because they will take time and they're quite sort of difficult to sort of get tonally right. And also working with the right people is sometimes you've got to take a beat on who you're going to do that with. I think as well, working with newsletters and things like that, incredibly important. I know the Startups magazine newsletter is incredibly well read, always full of information and that sort of stuff. It's a really important one for people to really figure out not just what's going on, but like what you can do. So, you know, there's only one editor of that. You've got to talk to it. I'm not going to tell you Anna's name, but there you go. So the idea, as I think I've said a few times, selling's not dirty. A lot of people think it's dirty at the moment. We can't do it. It's not terrible. You've just got to be two things, professional and be direct, all right? Most people are trying to be funny and homely, but they've never had those messages from people before. So it's coming off really inauthentic. But the idea is you can do it. You've just got to take a bit more time, but you have got to own the message that you are doing. So these are some things that we've been doing at the moment, and I hope they inspire you guys. I don't know if you can see my background at the moment, but we've been doing a Zoom background thing. So we've created this office package because basically nobody knew how to use Zoom except for like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and now everybody's a rough expert. Although we do have some clients that have failed to have t-shirts on, so we do have to instigate a clothing not optional policy. So we've also been I've created the backdrop for startups as well and that sort of thing. So if you need one, let us know. They take about an hour to do, 65 quid, job done. Makes you look super professional, makes you look like you've got your shit together on, and really kind of implies that you have pants on. You don't actually have to have pants on and that sort of thing, right? So keep yourselves professional, have some fun with it as well. If you see the one on the bottom right-hand corner, it's the buzzword bingo one. Think about what you can do on your right-hand side. How can you use the Zoom background to be maybe a better presenter, a more engaged person and that sort of stuff. We've seen a really good one, it's online. It's basically a person who is going through multiple backgrounds to do his presentation. It's quite interesting the way that he did it. Must have been terrifying, but there you go. So just one sort of thing to remember, if you do just want to use a flat image, this is the place where most people appear on a Zoom call. Make sure you're not doing it in any other room and that sort of stuff, because you will go over that text and it's then pointless to have it up there. So just focus on that. So now next future is what I really work on. So these are the things I would do now if I was a startup looking to help or a small business, right? Number one, triage. Use out of office email as an FYI sales tool, all right? Everyone's emailing, everyone's getting it. Start using it, put it on 24 hours a day and tell people what you need, what you do, what they can get from you and that sort of stuff. It's about being useful. The first thing you can do right now is to be super useful for people and plan for the future, right? So there are two things that we did straight away for this. Number one, we implemented everybody gets 30 minutes free, and we referred the friend place, and essentially that's where we did it. What was really interesting about all of those bits and bobs was we got lots of people coming in literally saying, what do I have to do? How do I keep this going? Help, 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 and that sort of stuff. And we said, best thing to do, refer people into us. It's highly, obviously, selly for us, but we can help more people if we know what their plans are and that sort of thing. And then they said, I don't know how to do any of this remote working stuff. What's happening? And so then we started to figure out that the best thing to do was really create a real world guide to remote working. And so we talked about physically how to use Zoom, what we should be doing with multiple bits of marketing when it comes to getting people on more Zooms and that sort of stuff. So keeping those sorts of ideas, being useful, never going to hurt you for now, right? Second thing that we did was we created one thing. Everyone's done it pretty much, but it was a really useful, focused business support info hub for about COVID-19. So this was, obviously you have to have the government stuff in there, it makes complete sense, but we went quite hard first along about all the grants that you can get, whether it was Innovate UK and all the other ones and that sort of stuff. So go to the website if you want to check that out. It's updated regularly and that sort of thing. The other one we thought was really important was to really update brand assets so that we can say, this is a moment in time, you know it's Buzzbar because it looks like this, but we wanted a specific look. So you're starting to see lots more circles in Buzzbar, which is splitting the company. I will not lie, and that's sort of thing. So the idea is to basically create a brand around this, but also again, you can take that away when you're done. So doing the after bit now, right? So what do you do sort of after now and that sort of stuff? So number one, focus on what's working, okay? I've mentioned it before. I think it's a really good idea. We've done it ourselves. Clean that database up, right? It's no longer acceptable to have anybody's name not capitalized on an email. If you don't have their first name, ask them for their first name. It's gonna save you time in the long run, and also you're gonna need that probably before we come out of lockdown and certainly afterwards. So clean that data up, make sure it's going to be good, okay? So the second of all, you've got to survey people for their pain points, their new needs and everything like that. I think super important. Ask them what they're going to need. What do you think they're going to ask for? You don't know, so ask them. Then your final bits that you've really got to do after this is test new propositions. The world's changed. You might not know what you need moving forward. So ask your people, and that's the thing. Think about the partnerships. You can totally organize those now. People are going to be clamoring. They've got a bit of time to do it. And finally, the third one is survey people for their future needs. So yep, you come out of lockdown. What do they need future? Because that's the stuff you've got time to plan for and create, and you can work with those partnerships to do it as well. Really important. I think Tania would really agree with me here. Keep yourself positive. So watch lots of comedy, listen to upbeat music, meditate, tour a virtual museum. There's a great hashtag that we started, which is called Brain Body Business. And there are things you can do every morning that keep you motivated or does something for your body or something for your business. We're starting to move into that business phase now. So before it was like, just keep going, keep waking up, put on clothes and that sort of stuff. And now it's much more focused on your business. Important to remember, nothing that we're doing right now is forever. If you get sick, it's okay, right? It's 1 in 10 chance, and that's probably for super old people. So people have got your back, right? Focus on the numbers, focus on the positive information, and really focus on building that business. Now is the time not to shy away from business. It's the time to lean in. If we can help, I'd love to. 45 minutes, you can feel free to use that. We're sending around a link as well. I might drop it in the chat again as well. Thank you ever so much for your time and attention. I really appreciate it. We're really busy at Buzzbar. We're really lucky that we're in that position. We know not everyone is in that, but if we can help, we'd love to.
Thank you, Paul. That was amazing. I love all the colours, all the fonts, all the gifts. Just love everything. I am again conscious for time. There was a question, but I think we'll go back to it at the end, if that's okay. And so now I would like to welcome Nevada to your screens with me. Hello, and thank you for joining us today. I know you guys recently featured in our latest issue, and obviously you're based in the US. So again, thank you for taking the time to be here with us again. I believe you guys are doing some work around the coronavirus and the current climate and everything. But to start with, for people, could you just explain a little bit about Butterfly Network and yourself, and just a tiny bit about your journey?
Certainly. So I'm Nevada Sanchez. I'm co-founder of Butterfly Network and also the vice president of Basic Design. I want to talk to you about the Butterfly IQ. This is the product that we developed. So this is actually the world's first whole body imager. It costs less than $2,000. It's small enough to fit in your pocket. And when you plug it into your smartphone, you get the ability to scan anywhere inside the body and get diagnostic quality medical images. So I could even do a quick demonstration real quick. What you're looking at is my carotid artery, which is actually supplying blood to my head. But you can use this to scan anywhere, whether it's your heart, your liver. If you're having a baby, you can see your baby, muscle injuries. And the way we did this is by putting an ultrasound system on a chip. So if anyone has experienced an ultrasound machine, whether you've had a baby or a muscle injury, or maybe you've had some heart issues, you've seen these machines. They're giant. They're on wheels so that you can push them around. They have half a dozen different probes connected with these big, heavy, long cables. And importantly, they cost tens to even hundreds of thousands of dollars. So what we did is we put that whole system on a single semiconductor chip. So this is an ultrasound machine. And that's what allows us to build this $2,000 device that brings the power of medical imaging to really anyone who can afford that.
Wow, that's incredible. And where did the idea for it originally come from?
Right. I mean, what we recognize is that medical imaging is an incredibly powerful tool. Once you can see inside the body, it completely changes how you treat that patient, because you're not guessing anymore. You're not scheduling them for potentially expensive or dangerous procedures if you don't have to. So that ability to see is really important. But about 2/3 of the world doesn't have any kind of access to medical imaging. So that's for 4 billion people that will never be able to utilize this technology. And so they're really not getting the best healthcare that they can. And the barriers were really that price and also the usability. And so by building a device that was 1 or 2 orders of magnitude more affordable, we've broken down that technology barrier. So now anyone from a doctor, a nurse, or even a emergency responder can now have one of these devices with them. We've also built a number of software tools to really help people use this device, even if they've never picked up an ultrasound probe in their life before. We've built a set of AI tools. They're powered by deep learning, and they assist users in both acquiring and interpreting images, even if they've never had this kind of medical imaging experience before. We provide a cloud platform that allows anybody to instantly share these images with anyone in the world. So if you're, for example, in a rural part of Africa, where there may not be a cardiac specialist, you could scan someone's heart, share this image with someone in the UK, someone in the US that is an expert, and they can give you the feedback that they need to interpret this image.
Oh wow, so you were doing incredible and amazing things even before now. So with the whole climate and the COVID-19 pandemic, how have you adapted, and what are you guys doing in that sort of space at the moment?
Right. I mean, I think we're sort of lucky in the sense that our business was really well aligned with helping make an impact during this time. So we're in the business of saving lives and helping people and bringing access to life-changing technologies. And so when this pandemic started, we really refocused all of our efforts, all of our technology, our resources, our knowledge and expertise to try to make the biggest impact possible during this very difficult time. So one of the first things we did was in line of education. So we built our own COVID-19 page. So if you go to butterflynetwork.com, there's a COVID-19 page where we really try to collect and disseminate information on how can you use point of care ultrasound to treat COVID patients. So for example, we unlocked all of our lung scanning videos so that anybody can go online and receive a tutorial on how to scan a lung. We collected thousands of lots and lots of resources on procedures. So how can you use ultrasound in your triaging when your patient comes in? How can you use it to direct their treatment? We collected journal articles, all sorts of data on how this can help make an impact. And we've even hosted webinars training thousands of people that are interested in using this technology. Webinars just like this, but teaching ultrasound and teaching COVID diagnosis through imaging.
Oh my gosh. So is it fair to say that it's been quite a busy, manic time for you guys in the past, say, coming up 2 months now, isn't it?
Yes, it's been very, very busy. So not just our education, we've also refocused our technology as well. So, you know, telemedicine has been, for example, something that we've been developing pretty strongly, and it's always been, you know, a couple of years out. But just, you know, in the last few weeks, we actually got approval and released our telemedicine product. So now someone who's at the bedside with a patient that's suffering from this can receive real-time guidance on, you know, where to put the probe down. They receive instructions in augmented reality saying, move the probe to the left, rotate it this way. It's very intuitive how we guide the user. And then while they're seeing the image, they can say, yes, there's some fluid in the lungs. I see some artifacts that indicate that the lung disease has progressed to a point where they might need a different treatment path now. Also, we've released 2 artificial intelligence tools that help people gain confidence and really sharpen their skills for scanning the lung and the heart, because we know this disease attacks the lung, it attacks the heart. Those are the 2 most important things to monitor. So we give them a little hot, cold slider saying, this is a good lung image, this is not so good of a lung image, this heart image is good, this heart image is not so good, so that they can really practice and get comfortable and familiar with doing these scans.
Oh wow. And are your products and the scanner, the IQ, is it used worldwide, or is it at the moment just in America, or where do you work with your customers?
We first launched in the US, but we're now available in about 20 countries around the world now, including the UK and at least 13 other countries in Europe. Actually, in response to the COVID pandemic, Canada actually gave us a very speedy clearance. It was, several months we were going to have to wait to go through all the processes to get clearance in Canada, but there was such high demand for this product that the government actually sped up and gave us clearance just in the last couple of weeks. So now we're selling in Canada. Same thing happened in Argentina.
Oh wow, so you're helping people suffering from COVID all over the world?
Right.
It's incredible. And in terms of obviously helping patients and adapting to help with your product, how else has your company had to adapt? You know, has it been a struggle for you guys having to work remotely, or, you know, being isolated? Are there any other major changes that you guys have been through?
Right. We were pretty, I'd say, early on in adopting these working from home practices. So before it was even mandated, we, you know, for several weeks before that, had been going through all of our employees and making sure that we understood the needs of every single person, whether they could be fine with just a laptop at home or whether their job function required them to be, you know, in a lab setting. So we did that very early on. We made sure everybody had the right tools and software they need to work at home. We had, you know, our offices were mostly empty, you know, weeks before any of these, you know, lockdowns happened, except for the people that really needed to go in the lab because they have to, you know, handle equipment and handle the parts, for example. And even then we would, you know, use sign-up sheets to make sure that we didn't have, you know, more than one, maybe at most two people, you know, in the lab at any given time.
Of course. And how big is your team at the moment?
You know, we have, you know, about 200 people spread geographically. So that includes New York City, Palo Alto, a little town of Guilford, Connecticut, which is where I'm calling you from right now, and even a team in Taiwan.
Oh, that's incredible. So you guys have obviously grown so much. It's been, you know, success after success sort of thing. And what do you guys have planned for the future, short term, COVID wise, and obviously long term afterwards?
Right. I think we're going to focus pretty heavily on the fact that, you know, the medical landscape has really changed significantly in response to this, you know, COVID pandemic. And I think telemedicine is one really good example of this. From a regulatory standpoint, telemedicine was really 3 years away until last week. And so that's going to completely change how the medical landscape looks. And I think you're going to see that telemedicine is going to become a dominant force in medicine. And so we're going to invest heavily in that, of course. The same thing for our AI tools. Again, it's been clear more now than ever that having this ability to disseminate expertise through either telemedicine or through an AI, which captures that expertise and can communicate it in some intuitive way to the user, is more important than ever.
Perfect. And being, you know, kind of right in the middle of this pandemic and being so helpful and having to change so much, do you have any advice for other startups kind of in the same field and going through the same sort of thing?
Right. I mean, I think if you're definitely if you're in the medical space, you really have the you know, responsibility, I would say, to figure out how you can leverage your expertise and your technology and your mission to make the biggest impact possible here. I think it's important that you know, communicate to your, you know, everyone who's on your team and everyone who's working on this, the importance of the work that they're doing, and it's also really that communication aspect is incredibly important. It's important that people recognize that the work they're doing is important. It's important that they recognize that we understand every person has their own unique needs and situation, and that we're incredibly flexible. And you know, if you can't answer an email at 2 p.m., but you can answer it at, you know, 12 a.m. because that's just how your life works, that's fine. And you know, we've always been a startup in our bones and our culture. So we do have people that are used to working late anyway, and fortunately, we're all just kind of used to that.
Of course. Well, thank you for talking to me. We've had one question pop up, which I think we have just got time for. Someone's asked, Nevada, has it been a challenge as a startup to break into the healthcare sector, which has historically been quite difficult due to legislation and FDA approvals, and have the doors opened for you much more easily as a result of the COVID crisis?
I'd say yes, it's definitely been difficult. You know, we have to deal with a lot of things that maybe other startups wouldn't have to. So the technology is obviously the most exciting part of it. And, a lot of startups get to focus on just the technology aspect of it, but we do have to focus as well on the regulatory and the quality assurance and making sure that we dot all our I's, cross all our T's. I'd say even before the COVID pandemic, the regulatory bodies have been becoming more and more progressive and have been recognizing the impact that novel technologies like this can have in saving lives and improving healthcare treatment. So I'd say it wasn't so bad before this, but it certainly changed after this, now that, telemedicine is now cleared, AI tools are cleared, things like that.
So I guess if we were putting any silver sort of lining on the COVID crisis, there is some positives coming out of it.
Yeah, we've made 10 years of progress overnight because of this.
Oh, amazing. Well, thank you for chatting with me today and joining us. That is all we have time for today. Thank you to all of our speakers. You've all been amazing. I think there's been a lot of insightful advice, guidance, information. So check out the post-event mailer and there'll be some more. And of course, you can get in contact with any of our speakers if you have anything further you want to discuss or questions. We can be the link there, or their details will be on the event mailer. I'd just like to say another massive thank you to Mauser for sponsoring us, and again, please do check out their details. They will be on the mailer and you'll be able to contact them and find out more. And a massive thank you to all the participants that joined us today. You're all amazing. You made it as incredible as all of our speakers did. We wouldn't be here without you, so I'm glad that we can all pull together in a time like this. And it's nice to just have like an hour of just chatting, everyone going through the same sort of thing. So thank you all panelists and attendees. Thank you to my team, and we will see you again shortly, 2 weeks actually. Thank you.
Thank you to you, Anna, as well. Thank you to the startups team. You guys are incredibly supportive of this community, and it's been an absolute pleasure to join you here today. And to all the panelists, it's been great to learn from you guys as well. It's been really, really insightful. And thanks to all the questions. We've just dropped answers for you, so I hope you found those useful too.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Sorry we didn't have any more time. We could talk all afternoon about this.
Absolutely.
But no, thank you everyone, and speak to you all soon. Bye.